Hello there. I'm Scotty. You're not. Welcome to the official beginning of Dis-Cember. This movie hit me, and not in a bad way. So Mary Poppins is probably my favorite Disney movie. I would say live action movie, but I think it's probably my favorite Disney movie. I think it's of all the Disney movies, I think it's even better than Aladdin. I grew up with it. Music. I did it. I still have it. I don't know how well it is. A vinyl of it. It wasn't the actual soundtrack. It's like covered tracks. Someone else is doing it. It's not the actual cast. But I had to grew up watching the VHS tape. You know, Mary Poppins means a lot to me. So back in 2017, where it was when they announced they were going to do a sequel, I went, huh? What? This movie came out in 1965, right? 63. This is the 50th anniversary version. So it came out in 1963. It was a big hassle for Walt Disney, who wanted to get it to begin with, and the Mary Poppins it comes from books, so it's perfect for sequels. It took 52 years. No, 55 years to get a sequel in 2018. They announced Emily Blunt was playing the role, and at the time I knew her, but didn't she? No, that was I think it was the same year she was in. Was it 2018 that was The Quiet Place? I knew of her. I know her too well at the time, I guess. Edge of Tomorrow come out before that, right? I don't know, but I don't know. I was going to go see this in the theater, and I thought, 30-something-year-old man in a theater with a bunch of kids and seeing a kids movie it's a little weird. So I ultimately opted out and said I'll just buy the DVD or Blu-ray when it comes out, and then didn't, because the more and more I thought about it, the more and more I didn't want to watch it, because I thought that if I did, I thought maybe, I don't know. If it was bad, it could only make the original look better, but I thought, I don't know. I didn't think it would tarnish the original, but I thought, I don't know. Because here's the thing. Saving Mr. Banks, the biopic film about how Mary Poppins got made, is a great movie. I intend to review it. It's a great movie. And it did well for the legacy of Poppins. And I thought this one might do the opposite of that. So I never bought it, never watched it. And then I bought it, intending to do this at some point. Like, I was going to do the sequel second year, and didn't. And then, 2021, I don't think I did Dis-Cember. Like, I tried to do December, and then that didn't work. But I don't know. One of those years I skipped. It was 2021. I think 2020 I did it, but I never went back to the well for the sequels. However, watching it now, so I've watched the Nostalgic Critic review. I understand his issues with the movie. I don't get why he hates it so much, though. I do have similar issues. The one big issue is Colin Firth. I don't think he needed to be an outright villain in this. There was no villain in the original movie. Sure, the bank were a looming presence in the film, but they weren't villains or even antagonistic. They just seemed that way to the mind of a child, But that's the way to think of it too, the mind of a child. So this movie picks up. So it's 50 plus years later after the original for us. But in universe, it's only been 20 plus years. They say it's during the Great Depression. So Uh, 1929 is when that started, so I'm guessing in the 1930s, because the original one uh, is very much in 1910, as the late great David Thomason said in the song, "It's grand to be an Englishman in 1910. King Edward's on the throne. It's the age of men." Yeah, that was then. I'm right, I didn't mean it. So obviously, if we're setting this only 20 some odd years afterwards, some things had to be different. First and foremost, no Bert. Dick Van Dyke does come back as Mr. Dawes Jr. We'll talk about that when we get to it. But so we have Lin-Manuel Miranda as Jack, and they changed. He's not entirely like Bert. He's not a chimney sweep or a chalk drawer or the man of odd jobs. He is a lamplighter, specifically just a lamplighter. Whereas, Bert was like a jack of all trades. He would do the drawings, and he would chimney sweep, and he would perform in the park for Miss Lark and Andrew. Yeah. But there are returning characters to an extent. Jane and Michael Banks are back, portrayed by Emily Mortimer and Ben Whishaw, Q from the current Bond movies. And for their part, they do a pretty good job. However, I do feel like they just said, okay, they're their parents. Because pretty much Michael's grown up to be his father. He's not as selfish as his father was, but he's stern. He's like, whatever, whenever the kid's trying to say this happened, this happened, it's like, and you're thinking, he kind of pushes it off. It's like, shouldn't he remember? But they make a point to say that when you become an adult, you sort of forget that stuff. Except for Jane hasn't really. But Jane's a free spirit. Like her mother, and she's sort of, like the mom was a suffragette, and she's also going for women's rights. So, or all that, whatever, the protesting and stuff like that. They also tease a little thing between her and Jack, which is nice, because Bert was pretty much just, "I love you, Mary Poppins," and she's like, "Thank you," and no real return. Like, you know what I mean? There's a whole song where he gushes about how he's in love with Mary Poppins. It's a Jolly Holiday. It's a love song to Mary Poppins, and she basically she rebuts that, like, it's a jolly holiday with you, Bert, but it's never really paid back, because Mary Poppins is that special someone, practically perfect in every way, as they say. And yeah, I do laugh when they say, "Oh, you haven't aged a day," and I'm like, "Oh, but you look like an entirely different person." If they had made this movie 5 years later and aged up the characters to this, and then brought back Julie Andrews and said, "Oh, you haven't aged a day," that would make sense. But I don't know. Emily Mortimer, for her part, does a very good job as portraying Poppins. She's practically perfect in every way. I had to say it. But she's good. And, she gets the mannerisms, spit spot down to a T. Yeah. They also brought back other characters. Admiral Boone and Mr. Binnacle are back. And I was like, wait, how much longer after this is it? Because we're led to believe both of the Banks parents have passed within the 20 odd years or so that have happened. There's no mention. They pretty much say that Mr. Banks, George Banks, has passed away. I'm assuming the mom did too. And then now Michael's got 3 children and his wife has passed away. Everyone's dead now. But this is a point in time where everyone died very young. So, because I think the parents were in their 40s, or supposed to be in their 40s when the first movie happened. And then, so this would put them in their 60s, which nowadays is a normal age for old age. But back then, people died pretty young. You know what I mean? I don't know. Mr. Dawes Jr. is still kicking though, which is beyond me. And then we have Ellen. Yes, Ellen. Okay, Ellen, it is now 8 o'clock. Ellen, it is now 8 o'clock. That Ellen. That, yes. And for the part, the actress does do a pretty good job of portraying the character. At first, I was like, it's supposed to be Ellen. As the movie went along, I'm like, yeah, I can see this as Ellen. She's, why do you think you're doing it? No. And they also brought back Miss Lark. Miss Lark likes to walk in the park with Andrew. Well, she has a new dog now. I would expect that because I don't think the same dog would last 20 years. So I get that. But I thought Miss Lark was already old. Again, I don't know. Old. I don't know. Maybe the Bankses aren't. Maybe Mrs. Banks is not retired. She just. I don't know. But I could see not wanting to recast her or either of them because, they're such iconic roles. Especially David Tomlinson. Who could you get to play that? Even for Glynis Johns, I don't know if you could find him. So I understand just sort of saying they both passed. I could get it, But again, Michael's sort of fallen into that same. Let's get. He's working at the bank, same bank. Fiduciary bank, and he's kind of fallen into that same thing. So for the part, it is sort of rinse, wash, repeat with the parent story, with the dad story, but they don't overcomplicate themselves with it, where it's like it's the exact same thing, or overdo it. They don't overdo it where it's the exact same thing. I can't speak words today. Change a little bit. He's not completely and totally antagonistic like George Banks was in the original, to the point where you really didn't understand why he was so strict and cruel and everything, and then by the end you sympathize with the man because he was trying to keep up the British end, as they say, and just trying to keep his best foot forward. But with Michael, you see a guy who's struggling. They let his character be vulnerable and not just at the end when you need to see him vulnerable. So it works. It does. The songs, for the most part, are good. Triple O Light Fantastic is dancing in my head right now. Triple O Light Fantastic. And the cover is not the book is another good one. I also like the one about the Royal Town Hall or whatever it was. None of them are gonna be as iconic as Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, and I'm glad they didn't try to do another big word. The Sherman Brothers, for their part, tried to do another big word song with substitutionary locomotion and bending up some broomsticks, and they even did the reverse stuff in there too. I don't Ramon in transitory convolution or in I don't know the whole thing, but like that. And they do a good job at somewhat mimicking a Sherman Brothers song. Richard Sherman just recently passed away not so long ago, and I do appreciate, Lin-Manuel Miranda himself did the music, so he knows what he's doing, and I can see at times that feel, the Sherman Brothers feel. And for the score, they did at certain points put in a little bit of the original soundtrack. Like there's a point where Colin Firth is talking about the bank, or is it? What? No, it's Mr. Dawes Jr. I think one of them is talking about the bank, and you hear that dun 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 from that thing, and then at some points, bum 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 bum. You hear that just in the background a little bit, So a few minor criticisms before I continue. Colin Firth. I don't think he needed to be a villain in this. So the whole main plot point of this movie is that the Bankses are going to lose their house. and uh, they have shares in the bank, and if they can prove that they have the shares in the bank, then they can save their house. And from the very start, you are told he's a bad guy. Like, he's going through the paperwork and stuff, and he's like, well, I can't see anything here. And he's like, well, we'll find the shares. You have till midnight Friday. So they start looking. As soon as he leaves, he crumbles up a piece of paper and throws it in the fire, showing he doesn't care. He's a bad guy. He's got these two henchmen, for lack of a better word. One of them that ends up turning on him and becoming a good guy, which is right, sir. But like, at one point, the kids overhear him and try to tell the dad, but of course, we're playing this like the original, so dad's not going to believe anything. And of course, Firth, or Mr. Wilkins, oh, no, Wilkins coffee. Not that Wilkins. Well, how about Wilkins coffee? No, thanks. Anyway, so, no, so yeah, he's played like he's the big villain, and when they go into this animated world inside this pot thing that was their mom's, they have a wolf that's supposed to be the animated counterpart to him, and right away they show he's a villain too. He's like, but his plan doesn't make any sense. He's stealing things from the real house and bringing it into the animated painting on the pot. What? And it's played like it was a dream, but we know they were actually there because they do that in this. They keep that up where, oh, it could be all in their head, and by the end, it's really not. But he's one of the big ones. So the runtime, I was very surprised at this. So the runtime of this movie isn't 130 minutes. That's 2 hours and 10 minutes, just in case you know. And I'm like, this is such a long movie. I mean, the original wasn't. Oh, it's 139 minutes. The original was longer. Longer. Really. I never felt that this movie was long at all. Sure, a lot happens, but I watched this movie and I breezed through it. I've never, ever thought this movie was longer than 2 hours. Never. Yeah, and the plot is summed up. We have little. I'll talk about the cameos at the end, I guess. But so the plot goes forward as they have to find this certificate that says that they have shares in the bank to prove that they can keep the house. Prove they have shares in the bank and it's money in the house, so that they can keep the house. By the end of the film, they've pretty much given up until Michael realizes that Georgie. So there's 3 kids in this movie, and I don't think you needed 3, but you know, I don't think they just want to do 2 again. But you gotta have kids in a Disney movie, I guess. I would have just. Well, I guess you have to have Mary Poppins watch someone, so it has to be kids. But in the end, Jane and Michael were her kids. The one it is implied there was more kids, and they do connect Jack. By the way, they say that Jack was an apprentice of Bert's as a kid. In Chimney Sweep. Yeah, he was in Chimney Sweeping. I couldn't think of the words. Yeah, and so he kind of grew up knowing the bank should and waved at them and stuff like that. Keep in mind, there was no kid in the original. I can see that after the events of the original, that's what happened, you know. Yeah, so they have to race to the bank to prove this. And there's a whole thing where they gotta turn back time. The plan is to turn back time, and yet, okay, I imagine, what if this came out now? Or something, now Deadpool's in the Disneyverse. We need to turn back time! Someone say turn back time? Well, I'm just the guy then. I don't know. If I could turn back time. That's playing in my head during this. So that Jack, the other lamplighters, and the kids race to the race to Big Ben to turn the clock back. And when Big Ben doesn't go off, but Wilkins' watch, his fob watch, is he a Time Lord? So I can make that joke now because I've been through that. It says it's midnight. And he's like, oh, well, that Big Ben is wrong. And they're like, what? It is like, so, like, he just, I don't know, he was never going to accept this thing anyway, but they finally make their way in. They fly the kite into the window, because let's go fly a kite. Dun, 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 dun. And Jan and Michael get in there, thanks to one of the henchmen not wanting to be a henchman anymore, and helps them in. And then we get the reveal that we all knew he's evil and was never going to let them renew the house. Or save the house. Excuse me. Oh, no. No. But then, Mr. Dawes Jr. comes a tip and tapping out. And the only issue I have here is that Dick Van Dyke plays Mr. Dawes Jr. like he played Mr. Dawes Sr. in the original. If you remember correctly, Mr. Dawes Jr. had a bit of a, oh, hello there, Banks. Father died laughing. That kind of, oh no, clever words, wooden leg named Smith, which they do call back to, by the way. When he's telling a story, you think it's, once upon a time, there was a man with a wooden leg named, no, wait, that's not the right one. Like, a wooden leg named Smith. Father, no! No. Yeah, this is the first cameo we'll talk about. Dick Van Dyke. And they do mix his name around in the credits, just like in the original. They use the same font and everything for the opening title sequence, and yeah. But yeah, he comes in, still tiptoeing. He's like 98 years old now, and he's still doing the thing. Come on. Van Dyke. And I'm watching this, and I'm seeing this part, and I'm like, I'm going to bawl like a baby when he dies. Because it's just like, he's really one of the last vestiges of my childhood, where it's like, yeah, he's still kicking, and I don't want him to go. Dick Van Dyke could have played the Doctor. He's not British, and we know he can't really do a British accent, but he could have done it. So what? He basically says, doesn't matter about your stock in the bank, whatever it was. Because, and I feel like this is a retcon. He said that a long time ago, your father gave his father some tuppence. And I'm like, that's right. He did. He gave it to him. And I'm like, wait, it was implied he used it to pay, with tuppence for paper and string. You can have your own set of wings. So I thought it was implied he used the tuppence to pay for the paper and string. A bit of a retcon, I guess, but it's like he invested it in the bank, which is not what Michael wanted to do with it. So he basically just did it anyway. I liked it better when he just used it to get the paper and string for the kite. That made sense. Where now it's like, So Michael didn't want to invest in the bank. He trusted to his father and he invested in the bank. It's a plot point in this movie because with that investment, he has enough to save the house. Yeah. All is well that ends is well, I guess. And then we have a big... well, before we get the ending, there is a subplot. It's basically the Uncle Albert, I love to laugh spot, where we go to see Mary Poppins' cousin Topsy, who's played by Meryl Streep. It's a fun little scene. She's, instead of like laughing on this thing, she's upside down and backwards. Like, this is pretty much Uncle Albert, you know. But what are you gonna do? There's one last cameo, and it's at the end here. The family goes to a fair, and there's a lady giving out balloons. Now, interesting to note, this was supposed to be Julie Andrews, but she turned it down. And despite what some may say, she didn't turn it down because the script was bad or because she hated the idea of doing a sequel. She turned it down because she didn't want to draw attention to herself by popping up in a cameo. Makes sense. That makes sense. Instead, they got another Disney legend, Angela Lansbury. Another one that we lost. Oh, it's hitting me. Ben off Bruce 6 is, I don't know, my second favorite Disney movie, I think. Maybe third after Aladdin. Live action, at least my second favorite. But, yeah. It was nice seeing her here. And, like, with the kites, everyone's flying kites. Now it's all balloons and they're all floating in the air. And I love the gag that Wilkins shows up. She gives him a balloon and it just falls. Because he's not, you know. I don't know if I would have liked it if he rose up or not. Like, he's like a fuddy-duddy. His two cohorts flew up. So they all fly up, they sing a song. And when Michael goes up, he remembers everything. He's like, it was all true. Everything we did with Mary Poppins was all true. And, like, but they're like, oh, the grown-ups will forget tomorrow anyway. When the balloon lady's talking to Mary Poppins. And again, I think this would have meant a lot if it was her, you know, Julie Andrews. But Angela Lansbury is not a bad get. Yeah. There's probably a nitpick, but remember in the original, Mary Poppins says, "I'll stay till the wind changes." Well, here she says, "I'll stay till a door closes." Till the door closes. And I still don't know what that means. Like, because Michael does say, like, I thought this door was closed for good. And it's just like, is it when another door opens or something? I don't know. I don't know. It's not as memorable of I'll go when the wind changes. As memorable as when the wind changes. But, yeah, and that's where the movie really, and you get the credits over the smog and everything. There's one last cameo to talk about. And this one hit me harder. Because when it first happened, I didn't realize what it was. Because I wasn't paying attention. I just heard the line. It's not like I wouldn't recognize her. Because I would. That face. Because I know her father, Roy Dotrice, from Sliders. It's Karen Dotrice, the original actress who played Jane. Unfortunately, Matthew Gerber passed away very young. But Karen Dotrice is still with us, at least as far as I know, as of this movie coming out. But I'm sitting here, I'm playing the video games, and I'm listening. And at one point, there's a woman who asks directions to number 19, because they live 17 Cherry Tree Lane. So she asks directions to number 19 from Jane and not Bert, what's it? Jack. Jane and Jack. Jack and Jane. And so she asks for directions and they tell her and she answers with many thanks, sincerely, And just off the top of my head, I went Jane and Michael Banks because I'm like, oh, that's just a nod to the original. And so someone said, I'm like, so I saw on Wikipedia that she's in the movie, and I'm like, okay, where? So I looked it up on YouTube. Someone put it on there where you can find it, the timestamp. So I went to the timestamp, and I watched the scene. And when I realized, because I did it again, because she's like, do you know what number 19 is? And, oh, it's just down that way. Oh, many thanks, sincerely. Oh, Jen and Michael Banks. And then it hit me, man. Oh! I didn't realize that was her. Yeah, that kind of hit me. You know, hit me here in the feels. I'm old. I'm old. I'm just old. But yeah, I don't. Is this good, the original? No. Despite what the back of the box says. But I still think it's pretty good. For a movie I was afraid to watch because I thought it would just be cash grab or trying to come after the success of the original. No, I think it was actually a pretty decent follow-up. Even 50 plus years later, I think it works. So yes, that is the end of Dis-Cember. I'm not doing any more. I'm just kidding. The end of the beginning. Beginning of the end. End of the beginning. The first review of Dis-Cember. I'm going to try to do all 31. I have it planned out. I would have said this in my intro video, but Saturdays and Sundays are dedicated to sequels. That's what today is. Mondays and Wednesdays are just whatever days, because I need freebie days to do stuff. Tuesdays will be TV Tuesdays, where I cover Disney Channel original movies or movies that were on Wonderful World of Disney, stuff like that. Thursdays will be Throwback Thursdays, and not like the old Throwback Thursday where it's like from the 80s. No. Or the 90s. It was the 90s, wasn't it? It was the 90s. No, these are classic movies like Treasure Island or Freaky Friday. I'm not doing Freaky Friday, but old movies, the 60s and stuff, like Mary Poppins era stuff. So, yeah. And then Fridays will be Franchise Friday, and that's going to be the Lilo and Stitch movies. I'm getting those done after trying to work them in for the last 2 years. Finally going to get those done. So, yeah. Who it is. Again, I haven't recorded it yet, but I'm going to do an intro video that just sort of tells you about all that. But, yeah, I think this is a pretty decent start to it as well. So, what are your thoughts on Mary Poppins Returns? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I'm Sky, and I'll see you in the next one.